scout where the Winston is. Our ball tracer or other mobility heroes can do it. Backline, play back, wait based off where the Winston is. Then frontline force Winston out. Once Winston's forced out, backline walk. Okay, that's one option. The second option is this concept of, you know what, we just have an alt advantage. Let's not even be scared. And some of the alts we could have is rally, we could have trance, we could have EMP, and you know what we can do with this is we can sort of just rally forward and they can't really do anything and we'll probably be fine. And what's nice again about our ultimates is that if you think about it, you can just cycle ultimates. One fight you can use rally and try and win off that. Next fight you can use trance and win off that. Next fight you can use EMP and win off that. Okay guys, so today we're going to be talking about Ball Tracer versus 6-man. And this is like a pretty annoying matchup because 6-man plays really fast, and especially in more enclosed or short areas, 6-man sort of plays to just speed in, go right on Ball Tracer's backline or any immobile target and just sort of blow them up. So we'll sort of talk about how to, as ball tracer, how you can sort of beat 6-man's win conditions. And some of those win conditions are, how ball tracer will do it is how you'll essentially how to retake space when 6-man has point control, how to effectively bait your backline, how to effectively, what I like to say is prevent their engage or absorb their engage, and set up to bait your backline. But let's just go straight into it, and hopefully you'll learn a lot. So as we know, 6-man plays like really fast, and because it plays really fast, one of the biggest things you want to try and always do is when you play Ball Tracer is you want to always try and play a lot of distance. And something else that's important is you want to try and have a lot of mobile people, because if you have a lot of mobile people, then it's hard for them to kill them. So what I say is if you're playing against 6-man, if you're running normal ball comp, ball, diva, also don't run Sigma or diva, and also diva just good into Winston, tracer, say McCree or Ash here, Brig, Zen, swap this to Sombra. That way now you have another mobile flanker that can sort of take an angle, and it's harder for the 6-man to go on a Sombra. Plus EMP is a nice win con to have in the back, in your back pocket. So another just general thing, we'll talk about it a bit more later, but whenever 6-man essentially has point control, they have a really big advantage because they can sort of just run on you. They can just run on you just like sort of Brawl would and just int. And when you don't have space, it's a bit harder because you try and clear them out. And we'll talk about sort of how you can approach that. One advantage I would say that is really important that you need to realize is that when you play this composition, Rally, Trance, and EMP are insanely useful ultimates, and sort of using them to cycle and using them so you can take space is really effective. So like I said, we'll sort of talk about the logic. This is a very brief introduction, but let's sort of just go straight into it. So here we're looking at Busan. I want to use this map because I think it's a good map to sort of explain the concept, plus it's sort of in my head. So the first thing we're going to talk about in general is like neutral. We'll talk about neutral, talk about point control, we'll talk about like retakes. And while we're doing this, we'll talk about some like general play styles and what the enemy team is trying to do and how to, avoid it, beat it. So in neutral, you sort of just look at this. What you'll notice is 6-man sort of set up here. They might look for a hack or whatnot, but in general, they are all here and they are all looking to sort of run and hit somebody. Who's that? Well, they're trying to in general to go on the backline. So one thing you can do to counter this is what I like to call is fuck the Winston. So this is called fuck the Winston. And actually, before we actually get in here, let me first talk about positioning. So in neutral, or just when you have a little bit of space, it's really important that you set up and play angles, because if these guys are sort of stacked together, which they sort of have to be, these guys can roam a little bit. What you essentially want to do is you want to have angles and you want to be able to pressure their Winston, because Winston's what holds space. So for instance, if Winston wasn't here and these guys all went in our backline, that wouldn't be that scary. But when Winston's on our backline, that's scary because that prevents our backline from really walking, and it sort of cuts off heals and other stuff as well. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to take a bunch of angles, and when these guys push forward, You want Tracer to be able to shoot, Diva to be able to shoot, Sombra to be able to shoot, and Ball also to be able to pressure from another angle. So hence, that's why we want multiple angles, and we'll talk about the setup. So first thing is we don't need Diva playing all the way back here. This is one of the biggest mistakes. Diva players always play super far back when there's literally no reason to. Why? There's very little range damage. You're not gonna have much of a difference between here and here in terms of healing. What the difference is here, you'll actually have a bigger like damage impact. Plus, you can bait the enemy team to go on you instead of the backline, which can be very good. Also, when you play here, you can also enable your flankers. Like if these two are fighting, you can DM and help them out. Those are like the main reasons I'd say, and it's another angle. Somber's sort of playing over here because this is a little bit better spot for an uptime because your supports over here. There we go. So your supports are over here, sort of max distance. Notice your supports can help your Sombra. Notice your supports can help your Diva. Notice your supports can also help your Tracer. So both DPS are in support LOS. Diva's in support LOS, so they're all going to get resources. Ball's coming in from a flank, and that's a split focus, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So that's the basics. Now let's go into the different play styles that you can approach in sort of neutral. So the first one I like to call is Fuck Winston. So why is it called Fuck Winston? Well, because your job in this play style is literally to make Winston's life a miserable hell, and this is really good when there's a lot of distance. So there's a lot of distance between the enemy Winston and like where your backline is. Then this type of play style will work. So essentially you want like long areas or like really open. Okay, it's a really weird color and it's glaring in a really weird way. I think that's better. Okay, you want long and open. Now, essentially what you want to try and do is when Winston's trying to walk up and take space here, you want to try and remove his armor, because Winston without armor, honestly, will get forced out really easily. You want to try and force him maybe to jump early. That means he can't jump out, which is good. And if he jumps in and doesn't actually get on you, then he sort of like imagine if he jumps here, that sucks because then he's gonna walk out of his bubble or take a bunch of damage and play a corner. So if you want to try and force a jump, maybe you want to try and force him to use bubble. So if you force any of those CDs, that's like insanely good and you have an advantage. So if you force like bubble early before he's actually on you, you force a jump and he's not actually jumping on you, and it's also good because he can't jump out. And then the next thing is you get rid of his armor. And obviously if they have ults, it's a little different because he can jump in, maybe as primal. So that's one of the things. Now, when this is happening, target focus wise, when these guys are moving forward and pushing up, you'll have Tracer shoot them, you'll have Diva shoot them, you'll have Sombra shoot them. But then and obviously Zen, Brig, Brig's maybe flail if Winston jumps, Zen, Discord, Winston, shoot Winston. So you have 4 people, not 4, 5 people shooting Winston, really denying him. Then your ball's job is to try and roll through here, slam, and try and force this Moira to fade early, and then pressure this sort of Moira out. That way this Moira gets forced out, and then this Winston who's going forward now doesn't have Moira heals, so it's easier for you to kill him. So this is sort of one very general concept, like I said, which is called Fuck the Winston. Now, this concept won't always work because in this situation, it should work because there's a lot of distance and it's really open space. But let's say now we are in a situation where there we go. Oh, I deleted the Diva. There we go. Okay. Where there isn't this much open space and it's short distance. Then we're gonna have to go for it's like more of like a hybrid type of play style. So let's get this. We'll use red this time. 2. So sort of a hybrid. And what this will look like, let's say like trying to do this out like let's say your backline's like right over here and you're trying to rotate. Diva's here and they're in there 4 people. Oh, we lost Lucio. Oops. Like this. Tracer maybe here. Sombra here. Sombra's there. You should swap. Something like this, and your ball's coming behind. So now in this situation, you can sort of see that their team is like really, really, really close together. Whoops. Well, they're not the distance between their team, and your team is really close. So because of this, it's going to be too hard to play Fuck the Winston just because they'll close distance and you probably won't force that much because they have DM, speed boost, and movement CDs, but they shouldn't have to use it. So we go for like a hybrid type of concept here, where in this hybrid now, what we'll do is we will have our ball and Tracer. So it's more pressure. Go in, and these two guys will go on the Moira and try and slam and force Moira to fade out, and then they'll sort of pressure and maybe try and kill the Moira. When that happens, then now you've got more damage output, and then hopes these guys will sort of kite out, and we'll talk about absorbing in a little bit. But these guys will kite out and they'll try and trade. And we'll talk about, again, absorbing in a second. But hopefully this works, and that's one way to approach it. So it's a hybrid where now your ball plus Tracer sort of go on the Moira and split focus. That might even make the D.Va turn. It could be even better, right? If the D.Va turns, that means the Winston doesn't get DM. And then like the rest of your team, which is like 4 people, will shoot the Winston and try and force him out. And what I'll also say is sometimes like when you're playing this composition, like you might have to watch like an enemy Tracer or Sombra, right? So when that happens, maybe your Zen's shooting like that person a little bit and your D.Va's soft pressuring, but in general you're shooting Winston. So if a lot of you guys have seen my videos, so hopefully for this will make sense. This concept of like 2 different type of play styles, whereas one you're really playing like open space, you're just playing just screw this Winston over. One you're playing, you know it's going to be hard to do it, so you know you're doing this hybrid type of play style. Now, and I'll talk about another playstyle too, which is a little bit slower and it can work as well a little bit later. Now, if most of you have seen my videos, you guys know that I talk a lot about preventing engages, and if you can prevent them, that's amazing, and then you can sort of take space. So the example I sort of showed over here where, you know, backline was there, I see someone here, someone here, someone here, and, you know, the enemy team was sort of trying to push up into them, and you're trying to prevent, like, Winston before he even gets on you. That's preventing, right? You're trying to, like, force the bubble, and it's open space. You probably should be able to do it. Now, this example right over here, you're not necessarily going to be able to prevent the Winston. The Winston's probably going to get on you, and then you have to sort of try and absorb the engage. So we're going to talk about like how to absorb an engage. So we're going to pretend the Winston's like over here now or something. Let's pretend the Winston's like here. And then we're going to get our backline. Oh, can I get these guys? There we go. Always brig in front, by the way. Backline didn't know that. Here. D.Va trying to hold a bit more space, let's say. Trying to play as far back as possible. Maximize distance. Tracer maybe like holding here. Ball. Actually, wait, no. Tracer ball. Whoa. No, Tracer ball together.
Greetings.
Sombra over here. Or Sombra's maybe here. Lucio. Okay, something like this. Who knows? Something like this. Okay. And now in this situation, the enemy team is looking to, you know, dive. Okay. And when they dive, they're just gonna go really hard in here. So when this happens, you know for a fact it's gonna be rough and they're gonna get on your backline. So your backline is gonna have to back up. But if they back up a D here, it's sort of awkward because, well, it's honestly awkward. It's just that the enemy team will follow them. So these guys will follow into this enclosed area. And then, you know, the rest of the team may not get value because it's like an enclosed area. So it's not the best example of the concept I want to show. 1 minute. Okay. So this is basically what I want to show is let's say your Briggsend's here actually. This is fine. So your Briggsend's over here now, and the enemy team sort of tries to jump or like pushes them like here. Now, if your backline now kites and goes over here, the enemy team is still in open space. And that's good because since they're in open space now, your Sombra can shoot them, your D.Va can shoot them, the ball tracers that were behind us with the Moira can shoot them, and it just goes really well. What you really want to avoid is you want to avoid your Brigzen kiting into an enclosed area like a room like this, which then after their front lines or their core sort of gets on your Brigzen, then they can sort of stabilize in this room, get their CDs again, and then push out. Now here, if they push the Brigzen, right, and they like push them, then they're stuck in open space. Now it's open space, so they don't have time to stabilize their CDs, and it's pretty bad. So make sure as Brigzen where you kite, you're sort of kiting into a position that even if you die, that hopefully like, you know, the Winston can get traded or someone else can get traded. Trying to get this back. The other thing that's important is whenever they start pushing you, it's really important that as Brig you bash out, you pack your Zen instantly, Zen you orb your break, and then Diva, you're a bit more aggressive. Like I said, Ball Tracer go in, slam, force their Moira out. Sombra maybe look for a useful hack, or just start pressuring Winston and try and force CDs early. One other thing I want to mention here, and I'll talk about it like, I'll pretend, let's pretend some people don't play with double flanker, and I think double flanker is good, like I mentioned before, because you've got multiple angles and it's harder for the people to go on you. But let's say you've got an Ashe, and this is like, again, this sort of the similar concept. Let's say, whoops, you've got an Ashe, and the enemy team is looking to sort of push your Ashe. So now, in this situation, again, if you think about it, if the enemy team goes on your Ashe could kite, and your Ashe could kite over here, and it could kite over here, and it could kite over here. Now, the problem with 1, which is 1, this is 2, this is 3. Problem with 1 is if your Ashe kites into your backline, that's really bad, because then what ends up happening is that the Winston, Diva, Lucio, Moira, they'll sort of like chase the Ashe into your like Brig Zen, which then deny your Brig Zen. So your Brig Zen don't get value. If you go into 3, that can get really ugly because the Ashe can go out of your LOS, or if the Ashe goes here, that's also pretty ugly because it just get like Troll is just sort of suicide. But here you can like leave your Brig Zen's LOS, so you're not going to get heals. Now if you go to 2, it's good in this situation because your Brig Zen can still heal you, and when you go here again, now they're stuck in open space. They're not on Brig Zen anymore, so it can work really well. So the sort of concept of like actually as a DPS, if you're taking an off angle like Soldier, Ashe, something like that, even Echo, even Tracer, like if you're playing Tracer, like let's say you're playing Tracer over here and the enemy team starts pushing you, don't blink back into your backline, because then what's going to end up happening is the enemy team is just going to like follow you. Always like blink to like angles in which your backline can sort of support you. So your backline can support you here. And that makes it harder because now if these guys push the Tracer, then backline supports. If the Winston and these guys say, oh, the Tracer's forced over there now, and they push into the backline, then the Tracer can sort of shoot and peel. So it's sort of this concept of like angles and constantly dynamically moving these angles. Okay, so hopefully you should have this general understanding now of that you need to look to either prevent their engage or absorb their engage. And when you're absorbing their engage, you need to sort of understand angles and how you sort of kite based off who they go on. Now, unfortunately, there's still like 2 other things. Right now, I've sort of given the assumption that the 6-man is going on your backline, or a like non-mobile, like or semi-mobile DPS like Ashe, Creep, Soldier. That could be like a little mobile, but they're also like off angling a little bit. But the fact of the matter is there's still other stuff that can happen. So let's talk about a few other things that Ball Tracer or 6-man can do to our Ball Tracer comp. So in the start, we sort of talked about a setup that looked something like this. Ball Tracer always starts together. Sorry, it's like this. Now here, what could happen is the enemy team's Tracer could shoot our Diva, and our Diva then shoots the Tracer, and then their Sombra hacks our Diva. If that happens, these guys right over here, what they're gonna do is they're just gonna go. They're not even gonna worry about our Brig Zen. They're gonna go straight into Diva, in which then everyone else needs to start being more aggressive and try and look for a trade. And obviously, a Diva, try and play a corner, try and be aware of this, try and like hopefully our team can try and counter the hack, but it's difficult. But it's the same concept, whereas if you get hacked, try and play an open space so that they're stuck in open space and we can force resources. And when this happens as well, Ball Tracer will go and hit, try and split them up. Our Ashe or our Ashe or Sombra will try and get value as well, and like shoot a lot and try and again get a trade. So if they do this, it's just really important as a team we're fast and we make it like an action, like try and push in, try and force their Winston, kill the Winston, Ball Tracer, try and force their Moira out, because unfortunately there's not much you can really do if they play this well. It's just sort of, but your Diva can sort of understand that they have Tracer Sombra and they might do this and try and position a bit better. The other example that could happen, or other like option the enemy team could do, is they could be like, oh, I know the Ball Tracer is going to hit us, so these guys go forward, Ball Tracer comes in. When Ball Tracer comes in, Sombra hacks the ball, and then as soon as the ball's hacked, these guys turn around, then kill the ball. And when this happens again, be more aggressive, be more assertive. Diva try and DM the ball. Technically your tracer can try and your tracer can try and shoot and counter the hack, but that's difficult. And this is something where as ball you need to be a bit smarter and just careful. And that's why it's really important when you're playing first 6-man with Sombra, you're just constantly calling where the Sombra is, so your ball knows, your diva knows. You can sort of play around these hacks, and if you don't know where Sombra is, then your ball tracer is a bit more safe. And again, if they attack our ball, then we just go really aggressive. We take our angles really. We don't necessarily just walk in and brawl, but we take like really aggressive angles in hopes to try and force CDs. And again, they're in open space, so try and force bubble, try and remove armor. Winston's sort of stuck there. Ball tracer, try and shoot the Moira, force that Moira to fade out. If our ball dies, Moira is out. Winston has no CDs. Maybe we can get something done. And while it's happening, maybe our Sombra is looking for a useful hack like hacking Diva, so the Diva's not DMing our damage. Okay. I will answer questions at the end. I just want to get through everything. So the next thing I want to quickly talk about, and then I'm pretty much done. There's this, and then there's one more thing, is the concept of retaking space. So a lot of people in general struggle with retaking space because the enemy team can sort of just run at you and kill you. So I sort of want to talk about like how we can approach retaking space. So let's just say here, Sombra's here. Let's again get rid of this. Where'd my red dude go? Okay, Sombra. Okay. The Winston's hiding here with Lucio Moira. Actually, no, you're over here. Winston's hiding here. Tracer's over here. Our backline's over here. So obviously, you hopefully know Diva Brigzen is part of the backline. Our Sombra's over here. So whenever we're retaking space, there's a few options that we can do that'll help us retake space. The first thing is this option of like sort of the slow method where we're trying to essentially scout, understand where their Winston is, force him out, and then we can take space. So if we sort of see this situation, we know that the enemy team needs Winston to get on our backline, and we'll hard engage with Winston because he holds space and he denies our backline. So wherever their engagement zone is based off where the Winston is, or where Winston can speed to. Like if Winston's maybe like over here, maybe Winston will get speed. Like we'll get like, let's say like Winston will get like speed boost. Yeah, from Lucio English, and then jump in here and get value. But sometimes instead, a Winston will sort of just hide in a position where he can just chill and then just jump in. So the way to sort of prevent this is if you see the Winston over here, you're like, well, there's a Winston here. What is he looking to do? Well, he's probably looking to jump here, here, or maybe here. And regardless, if when you do this, when you're retaking, scout where the Winston is, you have, two flankers and a ball. You can say, hey, the Winston's right over here. Can we force him out? And then what happens is, your ball tracer can come, your Sombra can come, and you sort of shoot him and try and force him out. And while this is happening, your backline plays really safe. If they're all the way over here, Winston can't just magically jump on them and deny them. So, oh, whoops, we sort of lost our Zen. Crap. Oh, well, I guess there goes Zen. 1 minute. Get Zen back. There we go. Come back. Alright, so yeah, so again, if we scout him, know where he is, we can force him out, and based off where he is, backline can sort of say, oh, he's over there. Okay, we should not, be in a position where he can engage on us. And how do we know what he can engage on? Well, where he can jump on, or where he can sort of speed boost a little bit and jump on. So we need to care like the speed boost and jump, and sort of just like a regular jump, speed boost jump, and whatnot. So backline will sort of chill and relax and wait. Front line will sort of pressure him out. Once he's pressured out, maybe he gets forced to jump out here, then backline can walk more. Then backline can walk up more because they're not as scared. At least, I mean, the enemy team can still maybe engage without the Winston, but it won't be as good. What is happening here? To see. Okay, cool, we're fixed. Being weird right now, but yeah, then backline can walk up. So in general, scout where the Winston is. Our ball tracer or other mobility heroes can do it. Backline, play back, wait based off where the Winston is. Then frontline force Winston out. Once Winston's forced out, backline walk. Okay, that's one option. The second option is this concept of you know what? We just have an alt advantage. Let's not even be scared. And some of the alts we could have is Rally, we could have Trance, we could have EMP, and what we can do with this is we can sort of just rally forward and they can't really do anything and we'll probably be fine. Um, and what's nice again about our ultimates is that if you think about it, you can just cycle ultimates. One fight you can use rally and try and win off that. Next fight you can use trance and win off that. Next fight you can use EMP and win off that. Um, and I will say this is Brawl, and if you've watched my Brawl video, I sort of talk a little bit about alt trading and how like if the enemy team has alts, if you just rally in, don't expect it just to win because they could maybe beat or they could cull or maybe they're primal, split your team up. Then maybe after that you might have to EMP or you might have to mines or something. So be a little bit careful. That don't just assume, hey, we're going to use one alt and we're going to win. No, it's probably going to break into an ebb and flow. And if you're not sure what ebb and flow is, you can watch my ebb and flow video. And another option that you can do, and it's not very like map is not a good example for it, but you can try and like force point. And a good example of this would be like Blizzard World's attack. If the enemy team is sort of holding close high ground, your ball tracer could go touch point, and your backline plays really far again, like really far away from the enemy team, and then the enemy team has to make a decision. Do they run on your backline, which most teams would do, or do they go back to point? If they go back to point, then as long as a Winston goes back to point, then your backline can walk. If they send one person they said one person or two people to go match your ball tracer. Well, if you have a Sombra, they don't know you have a Sombra, and you can sort of take a 2v3 there, and your Sombra can get a hack, and you can maybe win that. Okay, so that's sort of like retaking space. Again, the scouting concept, alt advantage, and then forcing point. Now we'll talk really fast about holding space, like if you have point control, what to do. And I'm not going to go too much into this because I think this is like pretty simple and straightforward. So I'll just say that like when you have point control and the enemy team is like looking to attack, there we go. You just need to understand kill boxes, sort of like where are the chokes? Based off the chokes, where can we engage? And then sort of just go from there. And one of the biggest things to understand is sort of how fast you want to play. So if your kill box is, over here, draw that a little bit better. Like in this area right over here, there's one over here, there's one over here technically. There's one on these guys over here. So like let's say you want to engage over here and you want to play like really fast and you want to just go in and brawl, then your backline is going to hold closer up. And your backline will hold here and they'll just go into them. But let's say you want to play a bit slower because you don't have as many ultimates, you need to play slower, you want to build ultimates, then what you'll probably do is you'll put your backline further back and maximize distance. This is so it's harder for them to get on your backline. You'll still probably hold space. And now maybe your ball tracer might hit first over here, then your ball tracer will go out, and then maybe your ball tracer might hit them again in like some open space when they're trying to close distance on your Briggs end. And maybe by then, maybe you have trance, and you can like use trance, to your advantage. And in these situations, you can maybe use mines first and try and force CDs, and maybe you rally later, or maybe you EMP later. Maybe you use mines and force beat or coal or something, and then you play slow, and your Sombra's farming EMP. Mid fight, you have EMP, and you win EMP. So sort of in general, remember to play kill boxes. If you're playing slow, Briggs End, play distance, but make sure you have LOS. You need to always have LOS of your flankers. And if you want to play fast, then hold up closer. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful. I think one of the biggest things to understand is really the value out of break, rally, trance, and like EMP. Understanding that swapping into like Tracer Sombra is really useful. And then sort of understanding the concept of preventing and absorbing, and sort of like actually where to kite. And hopefully, and the retaking, I think scouting Winston is really important. A lot of people don't do that. Okay, thank you.